everyone, welcome to the Executive Compass. And my name is Amisha Srimankar. I am the founder of Vector Growth Partners. And today we have a very special guest who is David Rosenblatt. And he's a CPA turned recruiter from Quest organization. And he's here to, share about his role in the company, what he's seeing in the space, and how executive recruitment has changed and what to expect in 2026. Welcome, David. How are you?
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. And for people who will probably listen to this, and watch this video later, would you mind doing a brief introduction?
Of course. I started my career in the accounting world, which is a bit unorthodox for what you see typically in the recruiting space, but I'll kind of back it up for a minute. So my father started this firm 40 years ago, and he too is a CPA turned recruiter. And that's kind of, prompted my situation. So my father worked at Deloitte. He, right out of school, he got his CPA, and he actually went to find an accounting job through a recruiter called Kforce, and they convinced him and turned him to go the other way and become a recruiter. And that's kind of how, what prompted him getting into the business. Took really well to it, eventually started working his way up in the recruiting world and got to a point where he wanted to go off on his own and start his own firm. So that's where Quest came in. And again, 1985, he started Quest. Built out our firm, and then I came along and he told me, hey, go to school for accounting. It's a great place to start your career and get credentials, and it pays well, and there's always a need for accountants, which is still true today. Probably even more true today than it was back then. There's a shortage now. So, and I'm part of that problem, but for a later conversation. So I took a little bit of a leap of faith after 3 years in the business. I wasn't in love with doing audit and accounting. I worked at Grant Thornton, which is a large international CPA firm, and realized that was not my calling card, and kind of went to Dad and said, hey, what can I do with this? Because I'm getting basically the same shoes you were, 40 years ago. And, he said, you can go do accounting in private, which is always, the typical trajectory of an auditor. Or you can do something crazy and become a recruiter like me. And I, always had a knack for wanting to do some sort of sales as a kid. I would go into Best Buy and I'd see the guys selling phones, and I'd tell Dad, I want to do that. I can do that. He said, no. There's no money in that. Trust me. Go be an accountant. So I always think back to that, because that was kind of when I was a kid, I always knew I was destined to do some sort of sales. Didn't know what kind, and probably never would have ended up here if not for Dad being in the business, right? But I decided to take a little bit of a gamble when I was 23 years old, right out of school. Didn't really have any obligations at the time, no kids, no family. So I said, if it doesn't work out, he's a recruiter, right? He can place me as a CPA. So looked at it as kind of a low risk, high reward move, and that's how I ended up here. Came in 2015. I've been here 10 years now. I came in when it was just me, one other recruiter, and Dad, and we've grown in the last 10 years to now about 8 people. So we're more than double the size that we were when I first started. We're in hyper growth mode right now, and I've over the last 10 years I've kind of taken on more of a leadership role in the company. And Dad is spending more time with the grandkids and playing golf when it's weather permitting, of course, and kind of passing the baton. So it's been a really nice journey, and I'm very fortunate to be able to work with my dad every day. It's not an easy thing for a lot of people, but I'm very fortunate to be able to say that I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I continue to appreciate every moment of it. So that's my quick story of how I got here.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, you're probably one of the few good sons, children who actually listened to their parents' advice and did what they wanted and kind of, back into the family business. It's like a perfect situation, dream scenario for most parents. I have a 14-year-old, so I'm like, okay, that would be fantastic if I can just kind of mold him. Hey, you want to be a marketer? That would be great. So fantastic. Okay, so you started your career as a CPA before moving into executive recruitment. I'm curious, how does that finance and audit background shape the way you work with, the different kinds of clients you have on today? Like, how much of that role from your past life, if you would call it that, plays into your role as a recruiter?
Really every day. I mean, we place so many accountants. So I think for me, when I came into this business in the first year, the first thing I did was look at my peers and say, how can I place these people? Because we do a lot of work in accounting and finance. And I actually did place 2 people out of Grant Thornton in my first year of employment there. So I'm happy to say that. I took them out of their misery and put them into really good positions. And one of them is actually still there today from 10 years ago. So, a lot of what we do is we specialize in 3 kind of main buckets I'll explain. Family offices, which are high net worth individuals, high net worth families, and wealth management firms. We do real estate, so owner operators, developers, property management firms, and general contractors on the construction side. That's where we spend most of our time. So within those buckets, we do a lot of accounting and finance roles. So senior accountant, controllers, CFOs, bookkeepers, things like that. So there's a lot of, between what I did before as an auditor and how that translates to what you would do if you went to private, right? If I went to private, that's what I would be
Mhm.
doing. So I think that's helped a lot to develop trust with a lot of the people that we work with because we have those backgrounds.
Mm.
I get a lot of just referrals from word of mouth because people say, you speak the same lingo. You've been through a busy season. You understand my pain and my suffering and my torture, right?
Yeah.
So I can relate, and my father can relate to a lot of the people we're dealing with because we have firsthand experience. That's something that I think sets us apart from a lot of the other firms out there that don't have that industry experience. So it's something that I utilize every single day. That CPA is something I will never let lapse, or I'm still active to this day, even though
Mm.
I'm not a practicing CPA. I will never let it lapse because we're constantly dealing with people at that level all the time.
Yeah. And do you find that accountants thrive in certain work environments? Is it like one size cut, fit all, which is rarely the case? Like, what is their misery where they currently are, and where do you find that they thrive best? What kind of work environments do they thrive
Generally,
best?
it's public accounting. That's the misery. So it's generally coming
Okay.
from public accounting because the hours are so grueling and busy seasons are so tough. I remember a week, I call it Hell Week, when I was at Grant Thornton, and there was a week where they made me commute from Long Island to Newark. And then at 3 in the morning, I had to go back to Long Island and be back at Newark at 8 a.m. And they would send me home with car service all the way back to my train to get my car. It was a week truly from hell. And that is just an example of what they put you through. And it's kind of like the army training in a way. I
Mm.
think the people that come out of public accounting are some of the best candidates that you find because of the training that they're put through. But what you have to go through is very tough. It's very challenging. And when you move to private, you get your life back. You get more of a 9 to 5. You get more flexibility. You get more of a family kind of atmosphere. It's less of a name on a piece of paper, more camaraderie usually. It's a breath of fresh air for a lot of people, I think, once they leave public. But everybody knows they have to put in their time to do it. Kind of like investment banking. You put in your 2, 3 years, and then you go and you do what you do. You make more money, and you can settle down, have a family. So people that are in private, I don't see as much misery. I think it's more so that those
Mm.
early years in your career that you kind of have to just put in your time.
Interesting. Do you typically, I mean, what kind of roles do you recruit for? Is it the C-level executive? I'm assuming that is typically the roles that you
It's
fulfill.
everything. It's everything from entry level, less entry level, but more mid level to all the way up to C suite and directors. Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, and we do retain search for those higher level positions, the C suite and the director level things. And then we do more contingency search for your staff accountants, your senior accountants, your bookkeepers, things that are at the lower level that aren't as involved of a search as say a CFO or something of that nature. So we do kind of call ourselves a one-stop shop because we do everything.
Yeah. So what I read was Quest has been around for 3 decades, as you have kind of shared with us anyway, and is known for its work in family offices, there's real estate, construction, all the other areas too. How would you describe the firm's sweet spot? And is there one? Is it a particular industry, or is it, I mean, are you just well versed in all these different areas, or is there a sweet spot?
Yeah, so I would say our niche in our sweet spot would really be in family office and real estate. And then I think the three kind of go in tandem. I'll explain. So you have your family offices, which are wealthy families, as I mentioned. Both could be multiple families, which was a multifamily office, or a single family. And all of these families have investments, right? What are they investing in? Some of them, it's stocks and bonds, it's your typical equities and things like that. But a lot of them do real estate, and they buy portfolios, they buy shopping centers, they buy office space, they buy all kinds of things, and land. And what they do with that, a lot of times they set up a real estate management company that manages and houses those real estate investments, and that's where we come in. So you'll get introduced to a family office. They say, well, we invest in multifamily, and we own 60 properties across the United States of multifamily luxury properties. And then guess what? They also do construction on those properties, and they have a construction arm. So now you see all three kind of come full circle in tandem with each other. And that's why I say it's really those three buckets. It's family office, it's real estate, and it's construction. That's the 90% plus of what we do is in those sectors. Do we do a role in entertainment and media every now and then? Sure, we'll do that, but that's not what we're seeking and we're going out to find. We're seeking business in those three sectors because that's really where we excel, and that's our niche. So people that are in the family office space, almost all of them know who we are. Same with the
Yeah.
real estate and same with the construction folks. So that's the branding we're going for, and that's the kind of the awareness I think we have in the marketplace, and that's what we've been so successful with over the past 40 years is being specialists in that space.
Yeah, and is there a particular region that you're focused on? Is it just the tri-state area, Northeast, all over? Where do you focus?
So prior to COVID, the answer to that question is very different. Prior to COVID, it was primarily East Coast and New York and maybe some Philadelphia, a lot of New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state. Post COVID, I took an opportunity to bring us more national because we created Zoom and we have things where we can meet people virtually, and our vetting process became virtual. It wasn't always that way. It was always come in, meet at our office, we meet in person. It was a much more personal situation. COVID forced us to be able to have to meet people in Florida the same way we would in New York. So I'm saying to myself, why can't I fill a position in Florida the same way I can in New York if the vetting process is the same? So we started doing a lot more outbound marketing and targeting to clients that were in our space that were not in New York, that we had no existing relationships with. And it really opened a lot of doors for us in that respect. So that's how we've really grown and taken off is in the last 5 years. I'd say that's 5, 6 years. We've become much more of a national presence in terms of our branding. And family offices are housed in large markets because they're managing lots of money, right? These guys are usually settled down in Boston, in Chicago, in New York, in Miami, in Palm Beach, in Los Angeles, and so on and so forth, right? In Dallas and Texas. So our markets kind of follow, our work has kind of followed where our clients have gone. So we don't have any geographic restrictions. We're really all across the United States now from both a real estate and a family office and construction perspective because it's all the same. It's all the same type of
Yeah.
work. Sure, there are nuances in each region, but because we've worked in all of them, we're familiar with it all. So now we're targeting companies everywhere.
Yeah. So when a family office or real estate firm they come to you, what are they typically struggling with in their talent strategy, and where do you see it getting it right when you work across all these different areas?
Yeah, it's different for everyone, I would say, right? Every client is so unique in what they need, but a lot of the time it's the quality of the candidates that they're seeing. I'd say more often than not, and that could be from a two-pronged approach, right? That could be from a personality perspective. That could be from just a technical, and a resume. The quality of the resume is just not, hopping around every year, 2 years, no stability, or maybe the background check wasn't good, or maybe somebody, didn't get through a reference check. But more often than not, we just haven't been seeing the caliber that we were hoping for. That's what I get 90% of the time, right? Nobody's blowing us away. Nobody's knocking our socks off that we feel like we have to hire this person. And then my question back to them is why? Where were the pain points of the search? Are you using a recruiter? Are you not? Sometimes they're not even using a recruiter, and that's an opportunity for me to explain how we add value and how you're missing out on a large pool of the talent that you're seeing because of not using a recruiter. Sometimes they're using a recruiter and it's just been a terrible experience for them, and we have to come in and explain how we're going to, just because we're another recruiter, how we're going to do it differently than the other firm. I think to segue into that, culture fit and personality fit is something we take very seriously in part of our process of vetting candidates that I think a lot of the other firms sometimes lose sight of in just trying to find the perfect looking resume on paper. So we'll really try and have a solid understanding from our meeting with our clients of what fits within your organization. Forget about the experience that they have, the person that you need that's going to fit in here. What kind of attributes do you need that are going to make this person successful? What values, what morals and ethics are you looking for in this person? How do they conduct themselves? What has worked for you in the past in terms of retaining people, and what kind of personalities do those people have? That's what we want to try and replicate. If somebody's egotistical and somebody is not a team player and somebody doesn't want to manage people and they just want to delegate everything. These are things we want to kind of get out of the way before we do the search instead of finding that out after the fact. So for us, it's asking a lot of those questions and understanding the culture fit, the personality fit, and then being able to say, hey, okay, this person checks out, but what about the technical qualifications? And to me, that comes second because it's the easier thing to find. I think that's the mistake a lot of recruiters go is they find the technical and then they just hope and pray that the personalities will fit. That's not how we do it. We look, we want to see the backgrounds there, but I think more important than the background is the person. You think about what we do, it's kind of like a dating service, right? In a way, we are matching people to people, and it's not like selling cars where the car doesn't care about the person driving it. The person has to like the car, and that's it. It's a one-way deal. But when you're introducing people to other people, the client can like the person and want to hire them. The candidate doesn't have to take the job back, right? They don't have to
Mhm.
be to also feel the same way. So I think for us, it's there's so many variables that go into introducing people and making sure that it's right that you have to make sure those personalities are going to mesh well and be able to work cohesively together. That's the biggest thing I would say in terms of what we do to kind of set ourselves apart beyond our niche and what we do is more of a quality over quantity approach and showing our clients 3 to 6 candidates and they have a hire because we're doing it such a fine-tuned way of how we're finding these people. We're not just shooting darts and saying, here's 15, pick one out of the
Yeah.
hat that you like. It's a very, thoroughly vetted short list of candidates that fit both from a personality perspective and from a technical perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see that you usually try to come down to at least 5 candidates before you present them to the employer. That's great. How long does that process take from the time you get, hint from the client like, hey, we're looking for this position to fill. How long does that entire process take for you?
Depends on the role. I think if it's an entry level position, it's going to be a lot less time than something that's more involved and more senior. But generally speaking, from the date we're engaged, we are typically putting resumes in front of our client within a week and a half.
Okay.
And then it's a matter of we work quickly, but then it's a matter of putting them through the process. So some clients have longer interview processes than others. Our family offices are going to put you through a ringer of sometimes 5, 6 interviews. Lower level positions could be a one and done. So it's some of it's variable on that, but generally speaking, our turnaround to fill a position is usually within I would say 30 to 60 days. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but generally speaking, that's kind of the timeline we shoot for. If a position is open for 3 months or longer, we start to look at and say, what are we doing wrong here? Or do we need to reevaluate? Maybe the budgets doesn't make sense. Maybe we need to talk to the client and get on the phone and see where we're having a shortcoming. Is the client not being realistic? Do we need to explain to them, hey, we're not paying enough for this person, or hey, what you want doesn't exist? There are times we've had to have those hard conversations and explain to them that I understand what you're looking for, but what you're paying and what you want does not going to get you that person. So we've had to sometimes make revisions and making sure our timeline is and what we're trying to attain is realistic.
Excellent. And you spoke about a lot of your outbound marketing efforts, which has made you successful in kind of reaching a bigger geographical area,
Hmm.
where you serve people. Tell me about those efforts. What are they like? What do you do?
Yeah, it's not one method. I think that's the biggest thing I can say is a little bit of everything. It's what works for me. We use automation, we use email campaigns, we use LinkedIn DMs, we use LinkedIn InMails, we do cold calling, we do SEO. It's a lot of different things that in conjunction generate the leads for us and networking, going to events, right? So I think that the mistake too many people make is I'm going to just do one thing and do a lot of it and hope that it works. That's to me is the multi-pronged approach is the best way because if something else isn't working, you have other avenues to kind of depend on. So that's what I found to be successful for us is just kind of doing a mixed bag of different things and seeing what works and trying new things. And I think again implementing a lot of AI in what we do to try and help be more efficient, to save time on mundane tasks, to just get time back in your day and be having conversations with clients and be on the phone. That's really the goal.
And how involved are you per se in the marketing efforts, or is there a team in house that you?
Yeah, no, we're lean and mean. So I'm the one doing the heavy lifting on the business development front. So
Great.
it's me. Dad obviously had been doing it for a number of years, but trying to get him to dial it back. And then I have a team of recruiters beneath me who are primarily doing the 180 recruitment. So they're just doing a lot of filling my roles for me and chipping away at doing some business development where they can. If I had to pick an area where I'd love to see some growth and improvement, it would be to get them more involved in doing more 360 and doing more client development in addition to the recruitment efforts. And that's a goal that I have for not just 26, but for the long hauls to really turn them into really strong 360 recruiters to supplement my efforts.
Can you expand on that 360-degree recruitment? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so again, when I say 180, it's I provide a job description and they are filling the positions for me. When you're doing 360, it's they're going out and bringing in business and they're also filling their own positions. They're doing both sides of the transaction. Instead of just waiting for the jobs to come in, they're actually going out and bringing in the business and filling it in addition. So it's just another avenue to generate new business and new leads beyond what I'm doing, which is primarily feeding the mouths, right?
Yeah.
So it's turning these guys from just being delivery, they call them delivery recruiters, into 360 recruiters where they're doing the full transaction and really just doing more outbound efforts on the BD front.
Great. And have they converted from the 180 to 360, or is that a goal in 2026?
To me, not enough. To me, they're chipping away at it, but not as much as I think there's an opportunity for them to do. And I think that's a big goal that we have as a firm for 26 and beyond is to get them doing more of 360. And that, the way I look at it, more jobs is going to turn us into more having to hire more people and will force us to grow, right? So I think it's that's my biggest, if you call it a challenge or for the short term, is to just be able to get my team to bring out what they're capable of and be able to utilize it to its fullest extent. Because I am pretty much at capacity in what I am able to do as one human being. I have so many arms and legs, and I am managing the business, I'm managing my team, I am dealing with sending resumes, I'm setting up interviews, I'm closing deals, I'm doing way too much for one person
Too, which is
and
fantastic.
doing BD in addition to that.
And
So
some
it's,
global
I'm
things.
doing the job of probably 4 or 5 people, and it would help to have some support beneath me, I think,
Yeah.
to do a little bit more of the lead generating. So that's a goal I have, and kind of I guess you could call it a slight roadblock that I'd like to overcome in the short term.
Great. I love that you said you're working with AI and stuff. Take me through that process. What does that look like in your marketing today?
Yeah, so we utilize a platform called Loxo for our applicant tracking system and CRM all in one. And we just transitioned to Loxo about a couple of years ago. We were using something called Bullhorn before that, which is a very antiquated platform and more just a lot of mundane manual labor tasks, things like that. Loxo has enabled us to be able to utilize technology more and utilize AI in what we do, and it's a very forward-thinking platform. So able to do outbound email campaigns through Loxo with sequences and text messaging and calling and all kinds of stuff, so that it's not such a manual, hey, I have to follow up with this person on January 6th. It's going to do it for you, and you're going to go through as many sequences as you like. I think with our recruiting efforts, we've been able to use Loxo too, because there's a built-in AI matching tool that when we put a job into the system, it will go through candidates not only that we have in our database, but candidates we don't have in our database that are out there and that might fit the position that we can reach out to. So it's utilized on a sales perspective, it's utilized from a recruiting standpoint, and it's utilized, we use ChatGPT to generate our emails on a daily basis, just to come up with better ways to say things more clearly, more concisely, without writing an essay. It's all about saving time at the end of the day, right? So I think for us, I'm a big supporter of AI and trying to use it as much as possible. I think we can still use it a lot better than we are, but I think we're in a lot better shape today than we were 2 or 3 years ago in trying
Yeah.
to bring some of this into, to adopt it into what we do every day. So yeah, it's been a great tool for us.
Awesome. And what metrics are you most focused on improving? I know one was getting most of your team members from 180 to transition on to 360, and that is going to take some time and coaching and all of that. But what other metrics are you looking into in 2026? Because you guys are in hyper growth mode. So,
Yeah, I think it's, I'd love to improve our conversion rate on some of the outreach that we're doing. I'd love to be able to increase the response rate, increase the conversion rate, just book more meetings. Really, at the end of the day, I just want to speak to as many people as possible and be able to scale that as much as possible. And I think we do that well, but I'm from the school of thought that you can always do things better,
of
and things
course.
can always be better than the way you're doing it. If you settle for complacency, then you're not going to grow. So I think that's my mindset is always kind of 4 steps ahead of where we're at today, and what I know we can do this better, but how do we do this better, and what steps can we take to try and do this better?
Yeah. Awesome. And when you think about the next 6 to 12 months, as we're going into the new year, is your bigger lever, one of your bigger levers, winning new client relationships, or is it going deeper with the ones you already have?
Both. I think both, right? I think it's not forgetting about the ones that you've worked with maybe 3 or 4 years ago that just sometimes you're not on the top of their radar, and it's being able to stay in touch with them and let them know that you're still there and that you're a resource. And it's all about timing in our business. You could reach out to someone one week and they say, I'm good, I don't have any needs. Someone resigns next week and you just emailed them the week before, they might think of you because you just sent that email. So it's a lot of just staying in touch with the folks that you already know. And I can't tell you how much business I've gotten just from doing that, like on a quarterly basis, just sending, hey, just checking in, how's everything going, ready for the holidays? And then they'll say, actually, we have a need coming up in January, and then boom, right? So that's part of the business. But the other piece is there are so many people out there that are launching family offices, that are launching real estate firms that you don't have relationships with and you want to establish yourselves in their network. So constantly reaching out to people to new contacts in the industry that maybe don't know recruiters and don't know how to hire properly because they're young in the business. A lot of startups will do business with because of that. Always, I think it's equally important to keep in touch with the people you know and try and form relationships with people you don't already know.
Yeah. I would like to assume that one thing with your niche that you have, it's not so much affected by, we read these crazy stories. There's a recession and there's been tech layoffs and all of this. And I feel that you found a place where you can definitely thrive. There's definitely money to be made. There's definitely business coming in. So how do you, the point I'm trying to make here is do you see that there are more layoffs in where, you are, or do you see these are tough times for recruiters, candidates, job seekers? What's your overall take?
Yeah, I think I've worked harder the last 2 or 3 years than I've worked in my whole life because of the market that we've seen. But I'm also not someone that settles, like I said, for complacency. So, I'm not going to sit back and wait for things to happen. I think what COVID woke me up in a sense and kind of, I was sitting playing Xbox for a while once the world shut down. And I said, I can't do my job because nobody's hiring. The economy shut down. And it just kind of got me thinking, what I need to do something to put money on the table to support my family and to just, I'm not that type of person to just sit around. So I did that for a few weeks, and it really got me thinking, well, New York is heavily impacted by COVID because it's a very densely populated area. But places like Florida, who are not as impacted by COVID, might be more willing to engage and use a firm like ours to fill their positions. So that's where I went. I went to warm climates where COVID is not as big of a thing. I went down south. I went to Texas. I went to other places. And that's where I saw success. So my point of bringing that up is I'm always looking to kind of get ahead of the eight ball with things like that. So, always trying to get ahead of whatever obstacles may come our way and being able to try and counter those things by being innovative in some way, shape, or form to produce success in the future, whether it be short term, long term, or what have you.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you. I mean, that's really good advice. Any other tips or things that have been the key to your success as an executive recruiter that you'd like to share with whoever's probably going to be listening to this?
Yeah, I would say my biggest thing is to develop a niche and something something that's going to set you apart from everybody else. If you're reaching out to a hiring manager and they're getting 60 emails from a recruiter, you need to think about why they should use you instead of those other 59. That's my biggest advice. And the only way you're going to do that is to develop a niche and separate yourself apart from those generic, outreach emails that they're getting. I think we use our niche to that advantage, and people respond to us because we're CPAs, because we're quality over quantity, because we're emphasizing culture fit and personality fit. We're doing things that not just a typical firm would do. So my advice would be to develop that niche and develop an area where you can set yourself apart from other people. That's going to propel you to success, and especially, like I said, in this economy, the last
Yeah.
few years, I think it's been a tough economy for recruiters. To kind of piggyback back to that question, it's a lot of AI is impacting us to some degree. Clients think that they can hire on their own and they're using AI to source candidates, they're using AI to post jobs and what have you. But I think the human element, the human touch is never going to get lost in our business. And I think that's why we've been able to maintain success despite the economy that we've been in. Family offices are dealing with billions of dollars. They're not going to trust a robot to recruit people for them. At the end of the day, I think there's a human touch element that needs to go into understanding, does this person have integrity? Does this person, are they able to exercise discretion in dealing with my money? That is not something you're going to get, at least not today, through AI. I think could it happen 10, 15 years from now? We'll see, I guess. Well, I hope not for my
Yeah,
sake,
I
but
know,
we'll
right?
find out. But I think it's an area that threatens our industry to some degree. But I think that's, the economy has been a challenging one. And I think most recruiters would share that same sentiment the last few years. Right after COVID, it was booming because the great resignation happened and everybody started hiring like crazy. But once that kind of leveled off, it became more of an employer's market than in the other way around. And I think that they'll post a job, they'll get exactly what they need, and they don't need the recruiters. A lot of the time, that's what you're seeing. We're seeing it sort of shift back, in my opinion, now, for at least the industries we're in, where you might post an ad and you're not going to get exactly what you need. And you may need someone like me to go and source that person for you and tap into what we call the passive job market, as opposed to just the active job seekers that are out there. So despite the tough market, we've been very persistent in trying to just network with as many people as possible and trying to market ourselves as the leaders in this space. And that's what's propelled us.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Well, David, this has been a fantastic interview. We've got so many insights. Where can people find you online? Where can they connect?
LinkedIn is the best place. We live
Okay.
and breathe as recruiters on LinkedIn, so I would say start there. And if you do want to check out our website, it's just questorg.com, and you can always reach out to us through there as well.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.